Justin Walters, ACC host of the ACC Network. He joins us on 365 Sports with Craig and Paul and David Smoke. Justin, thank you very much for your time. So the ACC obviously is in that Big 12 type realm. They're both very similar. There's the two big boys up front with the SEC and the Big 10. What does the ACC need, in your opinion, to maybe separate and get back to where they used to be?
They have to win some of the big games. Appreciate you guys having me on first and foremost. But those big games start with Tennessee taking on Syracuse. We saw last year so many opportunities. Clemson taking on LSU. This year, if you want to change the narrative, you have to make sure that you get the job done. I think the ACC can compete with some of those schools. SMU, the game got out of hand, but I thought a lot of those issues in the college football playoff last year against Penn State were self-inflicted with Kevin Jennings. The moment just felt too big. But when it comes to answering your question, set the narrative, set the tone early on. You cannot tell me with the production that Clemson has returning that they can't be one of the best teams in the country. That offense is sick. Cade Klubnik had the best performance against Texas secondary last year, and that secondary was number one in the country. But overall, they have to set the tone and make sure they show up for some of those ACC, SEC games, whether it's Florida against Florida State. All of those games matter in terms of setting the tone and establishing a narrative.
Yeah, FSU beating Bama would go a long way. They're on the course.
I didn't want to throw that game out there.
No, but I mean, look,
Thomas Castellanos in the season that FSU had last year. I wanted to pump the brakes, but thank you for reminding us.
No, but to the ACC, did they? They're top heavy with Clemson. Miami looks like they're gonna feel a very similar team that they did last year. May even be better on defense. Obviously, SMU brings back a lot of guys, but after that, it starts to there's tons of what ifs, Louisville and FSU and all that. How do they get I don't want to say less top heavy? You want to be top heavy, but more evenly distributed so the people notice that the league is playing better and it's a good game every week, no matter what you're watching.
You know what's funny, though? I'd actually have a little bit of pushback with that. For example, Louisville, to me, is a really good team. Last year, they were a really good team. They had signature wins. They're going to start this year a top 25 team in the country. I trust Jeff Brom. We're still uncertain. Of course, this is all conjecture and predictions, but Miller Moss and what he's going to look like coming from USC. But they have a good wide receiver group with Colin Lacey as well as Chris Bell. Isaac Brown, one of the best running backs last year as a freshman, coming back. I do think that there are other teams, while they may not have the signature brand as some of the bigger schools, whether it be in the Big 10 or SEC, they are good clubs. Another storyline I would go to last year, you truly cannot tell me that UNLV should have been ranked higher than Syracuse based off of what Syracuse did, knowing that Syracuse beat them last year at their crib. Now, in terms of this year, there's no Kyle McCord, and a majority of the star players have left, including Pena, who went to Penn State. But still, I think sometimes in the college football rankings, there are a lot of votes that are biased. But if you look at the product on the field, I think there's some really good teams in there. Duke had some really signature wins last year in the first year for Manny Diaz. We know what he brings when it comes to defense. Malik Murphy no longer there, but Darian Mensah, now the Tulane quarterback, will be there. I do think that they're really good teams, even in the middle of the pack. While they may not get the exposure that other schools may get, they still are really good.
Justin, how do you view SMU? I mean, to fight for so long to just get into a power league, and then the first year they're in there, they make the playoff. I mean, just an unreal debut season. Kevin Jennings back. Lashley, obviously, still the man in charge, but last year they were new. They were fresh, right? Everybody's kind of getting used to them. What do you expect in year number 2 now that everybody's not going to be surprised by little old SMU again?
Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
I think they're going to be good again. Rhett Lashley is a proven winner. Kevin Jennings, I think, is really going to have to use those moments, even going back in the ACC championship game where he had not his best game, TJ Parker had the sack fumble. We know what he did in the college football playoff against Penn State. He's a really good player. And when he gets the eyes and attention of great coaches, one of the greatest, if not the great, in Nick Saban, you know that people are going to be looking at him with a different eye. He has one of his top players coming back who was lost at the earlier portions of last season in RJ Maryland. They lost a lot of firepower last year, but they were able to hit the transfer portal really hard. Rhett Lashley was very strategic and a scientist in terms of making the jump and making sure that they weren't taken by surprise. He got the hog mollies in terms of the guys up front on the offensive and defensive line, and he hit the portal really hard with them. So I expect no different in this year too. It's just really funny that they came into the ACC and they essentially said, we don't need your money. We're going to win. We're going to make the college football playoff and we're going to make some noise. But Rhett Lashley is one of the great guys. And knowing that you have an answer at quarterback, because with a lot of these schools, whether it be in the ACC or any of the power conferences, if you have an answer under center, as well as making sure that the offensive line is set, you're going to be able to make some noise in the conference and try to have a run into one of those 12 selections.
Justin Walters, ACC Network, with us on 365 Sports. We've discussed how the Big Ten and the SEC have their thing, their whatever you want to call it, alignment. Why
Super
doesn't
League.
yeah, there you go. Well, that too. They would love that. Why hasn't the Big 12 and the ACC come up with something in a way to make sure some of their non-conference games are even better so they get to play each other?
Now, when you're framing that, I think the ACC schedules really tough non-conference games.
Is.
So I just think it goes back to what we mentioned about they have to win them. I thought about last year when you have the game like Nico Ilimaliava with Tennessee taking on NC State. NC State gets blown out in that game. The only ACC feather in the cap that we had in week 1 last year was Cam Ward and the performance that he had against Florida at the opening week. You have to have more performances like that. It can't just be like the ACC versus the SEC last year or in basketball where they were 2-14 in that challenge. And you have Clemson getting a huge win against Kentucky. You need to make sure it's more middle of the pack. So having more than one win. We mentioned FSU taking on Bama. FSU coming off a very heartbreaking end to the season, not making it to the playoff. And then last year, we know how it all ended with a historically bad loss. A lot of people are being put on notice. And Thomas Castellanos is coming in. They made sure that they got some dogs and some top receivers for him. So if FSU and the ACC want to make sure that they get more credibility, you're going to have to try to win that game against Bama. You have other opportunities when you also play Florida. So I just think it goes back to winning those big primetime games because you have good teams in the conference. I can't speak for the Big 12, but I do think that the ACC, if they don't win those games, then you can't cry wolf about scheduling other games or what type of opportunity you get into the college football playoff.
What is going to be this year's surprise team? I would say that last year was probably Syracuse, obviously, with Kyle McCord, shocked a lot of people. I think Boston College with Bill O'Brien, the way that they started out down list. Is there a team you see having that kind of juice this year that people don't see coming? I think people maybe saw a little bit of Georgia Tech coming if you watch Brent Key, so I wouldn't put them in that category either.
It's funny because I wanted to mention Georgia Tech, and I was high on them. Like, you saw them coming, but did we think that the old-fashioned hate was just going to be that thrilling of a game? And honestly, if a targeting call was called on at the end of the game, Georgia Tech wins that. Their schedule was a gauntlet. We said that from the get-go, that if they're going to even have a chance, while they could make some noise, that they're going to have to do their best to keep their head above water. That was a tough schedule. So I would say Georgia Tech in terms of national relevance, because I love what Key is doing. I'll go back to Louisville because I think they're a team that flies under the radar. I can't say Miami is going to take anyone by surprise. I'm still uncertain what Carson Beck is going to look like after that surgery. He should start throwing pretty soon based off of the last reports if he hasn't started yet. But yeah, I would say probably Louisville or Georgia Tech for national relevance, really making some noise, because Georgia Tech had moments last year, but I don't know if anyone expected them, knowing how banged up the squad was, to beat Miami in that game or even to have that type of performance against Georgia. It was thrilling. And I do think that they can continue to use that every single season, Brent Key has been able to add another domino and keep stacking them up. And I think this could be another stepping stone.
If he can actually have two arms that work properly, what do you think the upside is for Haynes King next year? I mean, to grit through it the way that he did last year was just so impressive, and to basically just become like a running, he's like at Navy or something, right? Because he's just so dinged up. But what do you think the upside is for a healthy Haynes King and all that he has around him?
If every quarterback in the conference is at full health, I'm drafting Haynes King number 2. I think that's his upside. He will be the best conference quarterback if, he can go toe-to-toe with Cade Klubnik, but I would even take fully healthy Haynes King over Kevin Jennings right now. That's how high I'm on Haynes King. We've done film rooms and we've seen how strategic he is, but just the grit, you can't teach that when it comes to character. The man had one arm. He could barely throw 25 yards, let alone a hitch and go. And he's still running in there. People are hitting his shoulder. That's just grit, determination. That's Brent Key. It's like run the ball, like straight up. And I love the way Haynes King has played this year. But I could see him definitely being one of the best conference quarterbacks, if not one of the best in the country, when he's fully healthy.
Justin from the Justin Walters ACC Network with us. There was the offseason of so much controversy and angst or whatever because of teams in the conference wanting to sue the conference and all that back and forth that dominated quite a bit. Has it been a nice breath of fresh air that there hasn't been that now that they've got things at least together, it appears, for right now?
This seemed inevitable. This is what we're all going to come to. Kumbaya. Everyone is happy, at least for the time being. And I think the way the new payment structure is based off of who's going to get the most views for the top college football games, and then that is how the money is going to be allocated and distributed. I think everyone's fine with it now. But I don't think it affected me at all. It was just the elephant in the room. It's like, all right, keep moving.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, Justin, I'm an FSU alum. And the last 18 months have been an emotional roller coaster that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Have they done enough roster building to compete for the conference legitimately? Or if fans say that, is that maybe a little bit too lofty given how hard their roster fell off after 2023?
Man, that's really tough. I would say they've done enough to have over a 500 record. Personally, I don't know how you feel about Thomas Castellanos, but as a part of our ACC football road trip last year, it was myself and EJ Manuel and Tom Luganbill. We got a chance to go out to Boston College, and everyone remembers how highly TC, or now it's not even Thomas, it's just Tommy, however he's going, was speaking about Bill O'Brien. I remember game 4 into the season looking at the rushing yards, and if you just look at how many rushing yards Castellanos ended with at BC compared to the year before when everyone was referring to him as a diet Kyler Murray, they took away from his superpower. I think now that he's reunited with his former coach as the OC in Malzahn, I do think that you have a really good quarterback, and time will tell in terms of how many wins you can get. But if you want to, I've looked at the schedule, maybe 8 wins could be solid right now. The question is what you're going to be able to do in those primetime games, starting it off against Alabama and ending it against Florida. Those are going to be some real big question marks. Can you get the job done? And then you also have a game against Clemson this year. It's going to be tough, but it's not going to be last year, if that makes you feel better.
Well, look, there's nowhere to go but up. I mean, right? I mean, I will tell you, it was a shock to the system as a fan. I didn't expect them to be 13-0 again, but I'll just tell you that like 2-10, it was calculus I couldn't do. Like I just, in my head, like, how does this happen so fast? How much of it do you think was outside of they had some talent problems, clearly, but it shouldn't have been that bad? Was they let 2023 completely break their spirit for 2024?
No question.
Yes and no. So I like Norvell, and I used to work in Tennessee, and I saw the job that he did even at Memphis. But we have to remind ourselves about the firepower that they lost, and not just firepower on the field, but true leaders in the locker room, people that were getting after the pass rush. Now, I understand coming into this season, despite having no Jared Verse or Braden Fisk, that there were people out there saying that this is still going to be one of the best defensive lines in the country. And they didn't show that in Ireland against Georgia Tech, and they didn't show that every week after. There weren't even like stretches of dominance. But you lost so many star players. You don't have a Keon Coleman. You don't have a Johnny Wilson where you can just toss it up. There were so many great moments. You don't have a quarterback like Jordan Travis who has been through the system. There were even FSU fans, and you can share your thoughts because I remember him at Oregon State and having a chance to see him in person, as well as Damian Martinez. The structure that was set around DJ Uiagalelei was great. While a lot of people were frustrated thinking that why would you try to invest into someone who we already saw signs of when he was at Clemson and it didn't work out, there was some type of hope, but I don't know if I would go as far to say the heartbreak. It's easy to lean into that storyline because for a season that was historically amazing, and then you get the cord pulled out at the very end as a conference champion and you don't make it in, even though your defense does a hell of a job with their third string against Louisville, it hurts. And that storyline does fade away and then reappear itself into the next season. But I do think that another part of it was not having the guys in the locker room the previous year. They graduated and had so many people that left to go to the NFL draft, those dudes. And that was the reason that also led to the turmoil of last season.
Justin, last thing. There are so many storylines in college athletics. Obviously, football, SEC meetings, and the Big 12, among others, are having theirs this week. There's the college football playoff, the give and take. There's the transfer portal, should there be one or two. There's all sorts of stuff. How refreshing will it be just to get to the damn season and talk football?
I can't wait. Like, please, let's just play some ball. All the speculation, like it's cool to do the previews. I will say the one thing I do enjoy is when we get an opportunity to see the players in person. I remember having opportunity last year for the ACC football kickoff, being on stage with Cam Ward, and we heard all this stuff like the bravado, the swag, and he did have a lot of it, but it was a very chill confidence. He was very comfortable about himself, and he even spoke and in many ways foreshadowed one of the best games that we saw last year. And many would say that they should have lost, but Miami versus Virginia Tech, because he's cousin with Kyron Drones. But still, I think those moments are what I look forward to. But after ACC football kickoff and camp is done, like, let's just play some ball and stop the speculation, because everyone right now, optimism is at an all-time high. But who could have saw Syracuse having that season last year? Truly. Like, who could have saw Louisville losing to Stanford at Stanford? There were just so many moments, or Cal having that game against Miami. But yeah, let's just play some ball. But still right now, I'll soak up this period.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why hypotheticals should not decide who gets into this or that. Let them play the damn game. Thanks for your time, Justin. Great to have you on. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Justin Walters, the ACC Network, with us on 365 Sports.